My name's Shawn Patterson, and I'm an alcoholic. And thanks to the grace of God, you great people, and a fantastic sponsor or two. I've been sober since December 31st of 1995. Right. And for that, I'll be truly grateful. The step that we're supposed to be talking about tonight is step 5, and that is admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And so for me, being new, I was pretty young when I came to AA. The whole idea of confessional, kind of a thing. I just didn't get it. I was one of those kids that was, kind of extremely cool. So I thought I was really uncomfortable in my own skin and just working real hard to not let anybody know that. And this step came about, several times in inventory. I was in and out of AA. And when I first come into Alcoholics Anonymous, I wasn't, I guess I wasn't that bad yet. I had already been to multiple schools and been in a ton of trouble and all that stuff. And you guys know plenty of those stories. But I just wasn't willing to do the things that were suggested to do here. And for 5 years, I didn't do those things. I wouldn't do an inventory. I wouldn't do step work. I wouldn't make coffee. It goes on and on and on. And I just got more uncomfortable. My life sucked worse, and things got rough. And so I jotted down some notes just thinking about this. I always do whenever I talk, no matter what, even though we've done this 1,500 times. And I thought about something that I heard in a meeting just recently, and it was about just going to meetings. And this old guy was really trying to not drive it home, but he was being pretty practical about it. And he was like, if I just go to meetings, it's kind of like taking a class and never doing the work. Just literally going to a math class all the time and not doing any of the work in the math class. Or taking a college class, if you make it that far. I didn't make it that far until AA. And literally going there and showing up and not doing any of the work and just continuing to pay for those classes over and over again. We pay for it with our pain. That is what just going to Alcoholics Anonymous is like. So if you're just coming to meetings here, we're grateful. We love it. We love that you're here. It's very hard to be a man or a man or amongst many, or a woman. It's very hard to fit. It's very hard to be connected. We stay on the playground like we did when we were kids. And so, and you can do that, and I did it too for many years. I just came to meetings. I wouldn't do any of the stuff that was outside of meetings. And if you're brand new, that might be different. But like I said, when I talked about this confessional that I thought it was, I really did. And I heard priests because, we went to, there was a couple retreats. There's a retreat this weekend, a Catholic retreat. And I know that friends of mine had done that, but they were really returning to their faith. But there was this whole idea of, a confessional and that equals freedom, when really it wasn't really a confessional in an inventory. It was really learning about what drove me. So when I shared my 4-step, I really learned at the time, whoa, I did that because of this. And oh, they did that to me because I was really crappy to them, and I did things that were super terrible to them. And so the 5th step kind of consists of this 4th column of your inventory, and we learned about that last week. And that is in step 4, we figure out where we're selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, or inconsiderate, and it is literally a mathematical equation to kind of getting better. And so if I just come to meetings, then I don't do the equation, right? And so this thing, it literally shows, kind of a if this then that chart of if I continue to do this, then I'll get that. If I don't go fix this, then this will happen. And so one of the things that I had learned in AA was that I had many friends. When I mentioned that confessional or them going back to the priest, a lot of friends of mine in AA would go to a priest at first because they had to say it out loud, right? And I'm not Catholic, so I don't know anything about that. But they would go to somebody that they could say it out loud in front of. But for me, what I learned was that, because I wanted to do it with a drug and alcohol therapist, right? Well, the drug and alcohol therapist, like the priest, didn't have a problem with alcoholism. So they just listened to it, which is totally cool, right? But when I sat down with a sponsor and did a 5th step, that guy was like, oh, I can relate to that. And he would interject in resentments and interject in fear and interject, especially in sex conduct. I really needed that. He'd interject with inappropriate stuff so I didn't feel alone all the time. He would mention those things. And so that's why for me, I think it's important maybe to get that thing out and talk about that stuff at first. But really, honestly, because AA is so big, we have the kind of a market here of like vast experience with hearing inventories. And so, in my opinion, if you were to ask my opinion, it would be super important, to kind of do that with somebody who knows what they're doing. The other thing that I was told over and over and over again, and we joke around about it, but I will never forget this. Will Sosnowski, and I had already done inventories for a while, and Will Sosnowski was like, look, if you're going to work with me, you're going to keep your mouth shut. You are going to keep your mouth shut. You are not, if you read this inventory to your wife, if you go spinning off with the men's, if you go running your, please be quiet. And so you hear that a lot in AA, and for some reason, we just don't do it. We want to say things out loud to our people, to our spouses, to our family, way prematurely. We always want to do that. And for me, the bottom line is it goes back to the defective character of being all-knowing. I always know everything. I know what I need to do. I know what she or they need to hear. And so I couldn't help myself for the longest time, or leaving my inventory somewhere random. It's just, we've already devastated these folks as it is. And then we want to write this list of, things and which they don't even understand. And then either read it to them, say something to them, or leave it out. And it's just not, please, if you're new, please don't do that. Just wait. When they say wait. Don't do any of that stuff. And so what happened with me, the biggest thing I think was with doing a 4th step was we feel like immediate unity. Like when you do an inventory and you sit and do step work, it's super awkward when you're rolling into 3 and they're starting to talk to you a little bit about maybe do you believe in something, and then you write these columns and you're all iffy. And I don't know of anybody that walks away from an inventory when they're sitting with another alcoholic that's like, I just don't feel any more connected. We feel so much more. I felt so much more dialed into not just AA, but humanity. And so one of the other things I noticed was that I just from doing an inventory, I was able to shake hands a heck of a lot quicker. I was able to look in folks' eyes a lot easier. There were a lot of things that that I was kind of gaining on. I tackled fears, and they were fears of basic accomplishments, right? And I was tackling these things I didn't even really realize. I'd turn around and I'd look at my life and I'd be like, holy crap, how did I make it through that? I was always afraid of that. The biggest thing too was that there was nothing hidden, right? And there in my life right now, someone knows everything. And they just do. And some people know things about me, and I'm doing them, and they're like, Shawn, you better chill out, And I'm like, no, I'm fine, and I'm not fine. They know me that well. Gary would be one of those. And I think, too, this is what's funny about sponsorship, and I'll get into this a little bit later, is that you really coach someone along for a few years, and then they end up becoming your friends, and then you're kind of evaluating each other and helping each other. And that's true over the year. We became super good friends, and he'll kick ideas with me and I'll kick some with him. But I really think that, the nothing hidden part, there's a scene in the Titanic where Leonardo DiCaprio, almost cry when I say this, but he's sitting on the ship and he's sitting with all these forks and stuff. And he's like, I don't even know. I was just underneath the bridge. I don't even know how I made it here. Every minute of my life is like that right now. I don't even know how I made it here. I don't know. I could talk to you about all this work that I did. But I honestly am absolutely blown away. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't make a big mess of things. That doesn't mean I hadn't caused a divorce. That doesn't mean that, I haven't done catastrophic things in sobriety, but I look at my life today and the comfortability that I have and the things that not things like material things, but just the ability to navigate, and I'm blown away. And so today, One of the things I really have to work on a lot, and you'll see this at about 10 years sober, and maybe not so much with engineering type friends of ours, but if you're a creative like me and you get in AA and you start doing like step work, we turn into big time oversharers, right? Big time oversharers. And I work in an industry where like it's okay to overshare. It doesn't mean it's appropriate, you know what I mean? But even and some of that oversharing has built a big business. You know, like I say things as a result of being in AA out loud in professional settings in front of 1,500 to 2,000 people that they're shocking because I'm talking about fears and human fears that I learned in AA. You know, I help coach, administrators and, school leaders. And I was never even really one, kind of, but not really. But I learned about personal oversharing, and I can say something to Jeff so that he can relate. But really, as a long-term person in here, at this point, after 30 years, I really better be able to listen. And as important as listening is, I really better be able to remember as a sponsor. So when I'm listening to an inventory. So if I'm burning my inventories, and if the guy or if the person I'm working with are burning their inventories, that's a thing you hear of sometimes in AA. And no offense if you've done that, that's cool. But if I'm burning those things, I can't refer back to them. I can't do steps 8 and 9 and 6 and 7, right? But the other thing is for me is, Gary's got step work that he's done from back in like 1974. I mean, his stuff, not literally, but I mean, he's got step work that is like from forever ago. But for a lot of us, for me to remember those things about somebody that I sponsor, I can point back and I can say, and I think sometimes they're actually shocked because I'm such a talker. I'll be like, oh, I remember that situation with your mom or your dad or your kid or your, and they might have read that 3 relapses ago, right? Or 4 relapses, and I don't, no disrespect, but they might have went back out drinking, and I can still, remember some of their stories. And part of it is because I share my stuff with them when I'm talking to them in an inventory. It's very dialed in, very, very, and so as a result of, a lot of that, and, Robert and I talk about that, but some of us, and going back to the beginning, we come in here and we're about ready to read an inventory and there's fucking FBI standing out the window. I mean, that's how kind of bonkers or inside of ourselves we are. Really think that someone's going to come get us. And so when I sit with someone like that, because I'm listening and I know the tone and we try to pull that out of them, I'm not being judgy, man. I know exactly where they are, and I can totally understand, and we have to be patient. We can't giggle and laugh. We can laugh a little bit later, we can make fun of it a little bit later, but in the minute, you got to be really dialed in, or at least I have to be. I shouldn't tell you what you have to be. I have to be really dialed in. And so what that means after all these years is that sitting and doing that work is extremely important. And if you're new, many of us have had real success. Real, like financial, real life success, but the best thing that we do is sit with someone that's new and carve through an inventory and work through the rest of the stuff. It's in my opinion. Now I'll have arguments with, family and stuff. Well, the best thing you do is work with kids. No way. The best thing you do is help support schools. It's just not. It's not. I'm a pretty good dad. My kids are around and stuff, but I really think I might have done this better. The kids don't know because I never missed anything, but I really feel that the value, and again, don't blow off your kids, don't blow off the next sporting event to go to AA. I mean, that's crazy. The other thing is which is super important, is two things here real quick before we close. The one thing is I don't really have any trust issues anymore. I used to struggle trusting people. And the number one reason why I didn't trust anybody is because I was extremely untrustworthy, extremely dishonest to myself and others. I really do not trust people. Now, there's some people I don't do business with and I don't work with, and there's newcomers. You don't ever lend a newcomer money, you just give it to them. If you want to give money, you give money. You never, matter of fact, I never lend money anymore. I have family a lot that calls for money. But I don't really have trust issues anymore, at all, not one bit. And I had the weird uncle and all that shit too, right? But what I mean is, as a result of doing this, I'm not watching my back. It cracks me up at work. People will go, "You better watch your back with that one," and I just don't. I don't have a lot of that stuff. And the other thing is I think I've kind of become some semblance of a leader as a result of doing that. I learned how to lead because I was led, and it's super important. And so the big book talks about we begin to feel, and I'll say this and stop talking, we begin to feel this nearness of our Creator, right? We begin to feel that. And we're not telling you that if you're new that you got to have some specific faith, but there better be something, because if you drink like I do, we're screwed. If there isn't any kind of faith, we're in deep trouble. And so I really started to feel that when I did an inventory and did a fifth step. And the first person I ever did a fifth step with, like 33 years ago, I can call immediately in the car on the way home right now. I know exactly where he lives. I still know that guy. And that's because of that whole nearness and he didn't hesitate to kind of draw close to me and get super personal with me and say prayers and do those things. And so I'm really grateful to him and the few others that have worked for me. I'm grateful for you guys. And I never thought about talking here. It's funny, I'm always finding people to talk. But remember this, and lastly, and I'll just say this and close. If you're new here, I want you to remember the analogy of just going to a class and not doing any work. And many of us are familiar with that. If you're just coming to class and you're not doing this work, you could even stay sober like some of the old guys bark at the meeting. But what does the comfortability of my life look like? So it's great to talk with you guys, and we're going to open up the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Shawn. Okay, Shawn.